What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me at your next event. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. What makes you smarter? And learn with me right here on the program. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Sunday, February 23rd, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, Sanders handily wins Nevada caucuses. Senator Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont, has decisively won Nevada's Democratic caucuses. Most major outlets have declared, with 50% of precincts reporting as of Sunday morning. Sanders has more than twice the votes of his nearest competitor, former Vice President Joe Biden, and exit polls taken through Saturday indicate Sanders was well out in front. Quote, "We have just put together a multi-generational, multiracial coalition, which is not only going to win in Nevada, it's going to sweep the country," end quote, Sanders said at a rally Saturday in San Antonio, Texas, while results trickled in. Sanders more narrowly won the caucus and primary contest in Iowa and New Hampshire earlier this month, but Nevada provides a far more diverse testing ground than those heavily white states. Former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg is in a distant third. This is according to the New York Times and CNN. Number 2, South Korea on highest possible alert as coronavirus spreads. South Korean President Moon Jae-in on Sunday raised South Korea's coronavirus alert to level 4, or, quote, serious, end quote, the highest it can possibly go after the number of infections increased to 602 and a fifth person died. Moon didn't provide specifics as to how the country plans to fight the virus spread, but raising the alert level authorizes the government to enact measures such as banning visitors from certain countries, restricting public transportation, and even locking down cities. Elsewhere, Iran said it would close schools, universities, and cultural centers across 14 provinces after 8 people died from the virus there. In the United States, a federal judge issued a temporary restraining order Friday night banning the transportation of any infected people to Costa Mesa, California, where U.S. officials had reportedly planned to move patients into a state-owned facility this week. This is according to the New York Times and the Associated Press. Number 3, National Security Advisor says he hasn't seen any intel on Russian election interference. In an interview set to air on News this week on Sunday, National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien denied being aware of U.S. intelligence reports that Russia is interfering to help President Trump secure a second term in the Oval Office. He did acknowledge he hasn't sought out any information about the reports, but he said he considers it a, quote, non-story, end quote, based on leaks. O'Brien said the Trump administration has been, quote, very tough, end quote, on Russia and has urged Moscow to stay out of U.S. elections, adding that if anyone came forward with something different, he'd be willing to take a look at it more closely. For now, though, he says the report doesn't, quote, make any sense, end quote. Senator Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont, was also briefed that Moscow was attempting to aid his Democratic primary campaign. This is according to the Associated Press and ABC News. Number 4, Buttigieg begs Democrats to take a sober look at Sanders. Former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg finished in third place in Nevada's Democratic caucuses as Senator Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont, was projected the winner on Saturday night. Budaj congratulated Sanders and acknowledged they have many goals in common, but he pivoted to ask that, quote, before we rush to nominate Senator Sanders, let us take a sober look at what is at stake, end quote. He said Sanders, quote, believes in an inflexible ideological revolution that leaves out most Democrats, not to mention most Americans, end quote, and even accused Sanders of furthering a, quote, tenor of combat, division, and polarization, end quote, that would never change, quote, the toxic tone of our politics, end quote. This is according to The Week. Number 5, Dogen to meet with Putin, Merkel, Macron as tensions in Syria escalate. Turkey retaliated Saturday by destroying 21, quote, regime targets, end quote, after forces killed a Turkish soldier in a bomb attack in northwest Syria, where tensions are escalating. Ankara has sent thousands of troops into Syria just south of the Turkish border in an effort to stop an offensive by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's forces, who are supported by Moscow, that is forcing thousands of Syrians to flee Turkey. Talks between Turkey and Russia have stalled, but Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan did say Saturday he would meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and French President Emmanuel Macron in March to discuss the situation. This is according to The Guardian and Politico. Number 6, G20 compromises with U.S. objections over climate change reference in final communique. The Group of 20 summit in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, agreed Sunday on the wording of a final communique which references climate change, despite the United States' reported objection to its inclusion. The draft contains language concerning the implications of climate change on financial stability, but climate change no longer appears on a list of downside risks to global economic growth. Overall, the communique reportedly predicts an increase in global growth in both 2020 and 2021, but rising geopolitical and trade tensions, as well as policy uncertainty, concerned its authors as possible risks to that forecast. This is according to Reuters and The Hill. Number 7, Buffett reassures shareholders in annual letter. Berkshire Hathaway Incorporated underperformed in 2019, its stock rising 11% compared to a 31.5% total return in the S&P 500. But the conglomerate's CEO and chair, Warren Buffett, sought to reassure investors in his annual shareholder letter Saturday, which is in line with his longstanding opinion that long-term performance should be prioritized over short-term fluctuations in the stock market. He defended the company's decision to invest heavily in stocks, even though it's been several years since Berkshire Hathaway made a major acquisition of a company. He said while he'd prefer to buy a whole company, the, quote, fickle, end quote, stock market means stocks are the safer bet. The 89-year-old Buffett also said the company is well prepared for the future should he or his 96-year-old business partner and Berkshire Vice Chair Charlie Munger die. This is according to the Wall Street Journal and Reuters. Number 8, New Jersey governor to undergo kidney surgery. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, Democrat, said Saturday he will undergo surgery in March to remove a likely cancerous tumor on his kidney, adding that he is expected to make a full recovery. Quote, the prognosis is very good, and I'm profoundly grateful to my doctors for detecting the tumor early, end quote, he wrote on Twitter. He said he does not anticipate having to undergo chemotherapy or radiation treatment. The 62-year-old Murphy is still expected to deliver his annual budget address for the 2021 fiscal year next week, but will then reportedly retreat from public duties before slowly easing back into his role in the weeks following the surgery. This is according to NJ.com and USA Today. Number 9, Lizzo, Just Mercy, win big at NAACP Image Awards. Lizzo took home the award for Entertainer of the Year at the 51st NAACP Image Awards on Saturday night, while Just Mercy dominated in the film categories, picking up the Outstanding Motion Picture Award, and it stars Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx winning for their performances. Meanwhile, Lupita Nyong'o, who many people believed should have gotten a closer look at the Academy Awards, took home the hardware for her role in Us. On the TV side, comedy Blackish and Ava DuVernay's drama When They See Us dominated. The ceremony also took a moment to pay tribute to the late NBA superstar Kobe Bryant, who died earlier this year in a helicopter crash. This is according to Deadline and The Hollywood Reporter. Number 10, Fury defeats Wilder, takes heavyweight belt. Tyson Fury defeated Deontay Wilder after 7 rounds in Las Vegas on Saturday night, ending the latter's 5-year reign as the World Boxing Council heavyweight champion. Fury, who hails from the United Kingdom, was aggressive during the match, knocking the American Wilder to the floor in the 3rd and 5th rounds. By the end of the 7th round, Wilder's corner threw in the towel, which meant his title belt would transfer after 10 previous defenses. Wilder praised Fury after the match, but he sounded disappointed that his corner ended the fight, saying he, quote, was ready to go out on my shield, end quote. Fury and Wilder had previously fought in 2018, which ended with the judges ruling the match a split draw. This is according to ESPN and the BBC. That's 10 things you need to know today for Sunday, February 23rd, 2020. This is What Makes You Smarter. I am Keys Dan. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at SmarterWhat, and YouTube, username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/Keys Dan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for